Hello, everyone. This is Ovidiu from AXP Academy. I'm happy to be here with you. I want to touch on a subject which is pretty close to my heart, and it's really, really important. Um, why do leaders need to become motivated? So, my background is as an agile coach. I've worked with a lot of people in the IT industry in the past decade. And what I've realized is that motivation is something that a lot of people seem to lack, and it's something that's very elusive. It's not something that's really clear. And I wanted to just go through it and kind of give my 2 cents on why I think that the leadership in the first place should become motivated themselves, and why do I think that that's the right place to start. It's not about the people in the teams that have to become motivated, it's the leaders that have to become motivated themselves so that they can lead the people in their teams, and also in also other leaders, right, their peers. So I'm part of AXP Academy. As you can see here, this is our logo. Our mission right now is to build a passionate, purposeful, and responsible world. So we're mostly doing agile. That's one of the things that I need to mention. But what I would like to also emphasize is that the important message and the important aspect is building your inner passion, your inner purpose, and also taking responsibility for your role as a leader is the key to actually becoming a really, really successful contributor within your companies. So I don't want to keep the podcast too long. I just have a few topics that I would like to go through, and that I think are really, really important, and especially based on the latest things that have happened. I think that it's really useful to go through them. So I actually don't like the way this looks. So I will try to redo it. What is happening? Why aren't you full screen? All right, this looks great. All right. So let me restart actually. Hey there, passionate leaders. My name is Ovidiu from AXP Academy. I'm an agile coach and managing partner at the company. I wanted to go on a key topic that I think is really, really important. So, motivation in leaders. I've been working in the IT industry for the past decade or so, and I've worked with a lot of leaders in different positions. So, as a developer, as a Scrum Master, but also as an Agile coach, a part of large company transformations. One of the key aspects that I've noticed was that leaders sometimes are not as motivated as they should be in their role. Maybe they are unclear. Maybe they feel they don't have the leadership's ear. Maybe they feel that things are not the way they're supposed to be, and they don't have power. So there are many reasons why leaders become demotivated, and I wanted to just tackle the subject for a bit today, and just kind of introduce you into the topic. I think the topic is big enough that it deserves a couple of episodes, and I would definitely love for you guys to be here with me in the journey, and kind of, give me some feedback and um, your insights on the topic. So, what do we do at AXP Academy? Well, we're an agile company, so we do agile transformations. We also do agile leadership programs, and our purpose is to create a more responsible, purposeful, and passionate world. So this is why our motto is lead every day with passion, purpose, and responsibility. Um, I will probably get to have like an episode where I will talk about us a little bit more, but for now, this topic of motivation is actually very close to my heart. I've been working with lots of people. Also, I've been working on myself on this topic. How do you stay motivated? How do you become a person that can actually do what they say and not feel frustrated about having to do things? I think these are key aspects that people need to look at. So I wanted to just touch on three things. First of all, why do people get disenchanted? Why do they lack motivation? And then I wanted to go about and touch on why are leaders, um, what do leaders have to do with this, and what would be your first steps? What should you do next? What should you look for? So let's look at the topic of disenchantment. Um, I've seen a lot of people looking um, at their own motivation as not being necessarily their responsibility. I'm not motivated because the company that I'm working for does this and this and that, because the context that I'm in, it makes me not be able to do this and this and that. I'm not motivated because I see that my team members don't care. I'm not motivated because I've tried to change things and it hasn't worked, and now I don't really understand what's the point. So I've been having these conversations for a long time, and what I've seen is that most of the time, the lack of motivation and the disenchantment comes from a few factors. Some factors are not in the leader's position to change, and other factors are totally in the leader's position to change. But for some reason, leaders want to um, always to externalize their lack of motivation, their lack of internal motivation. Um, let's go through a couple of let's say extrinsic demotivating factors and some intrinsic demotivating factors. So um, in terms of the environment, it's always going to be the context that people are in. For example, maybe they are part of a larger endeavor, and they have to, be kind of, or their team is kind of a small wheel in the big cog, and they have to make sure that they need to collaborate with a bunch of stakeholders in order to get things done. Another thing would be lack of budgeting. So maybe they don't have enough budget to hire enough people so that they could do a great job. Another thing in the context would be maybe the culture is a culture where it's expected for them to do the best effort. It's expected for them to, I don't know, do overtime, to be available on their vacation time, to um, work harder than they would normally have to work, and not necessarily be compensated for it. So usually there's a discrepancy between the give and the take. Other things that would make people disenchanted would be their expectations for progression, um, versus the reality of, there is no place for you to progress. It has to do also with hygienic factors like salary or relationships within the company. So these would be reasons why people become disenchanted, and it would certainly be reasons why leaders themselves become disenchanted. Um, and most of these are going to be external factors because they are things that people cannot necessarily change by themselves. Another factor in IT companies would be, for example, the technologies that have to be implemented, or the software that was bought in a multinational company that they have to implement. So these would be things that would sometimes profoundly demotivate people. Now, these are the external factors. There are also internal factors that most leaders that I've talked to don't actually acknowledge that much. And there are internal factors that they do acknowledge. So let's start with the ones that leaders usually don't acknowledge, that usually they do acknowledge. So leaders usually acknowledge lack of motivation, going through the motions, procrastinating, not being as disciplined as possible. So they usually acknowledge these types of things. They also acknowledge the fact that they have to be more organized. They also acknowledge the fact that they have to create this sort of balance between their work life, achieving results, and their personal life. Having a good relationship with the family, having good friends that they can lean on when things go rough. The things that they don't necessarily acknowledge, but their professional life would improve so much if they started to do that, are the fact that leaders are responsible for the performance of their team members. So I've had a lot of conversations on this, and I've seen a lot of different reactions and a lot of different ways to work on this specific topic. And what I've seen is that whenever a leader takes ownership of that, whenever a leader takes ownership of how the people in their team perform, things start to unravel, things start to get better. But until there's that mental uh, block, until that mental block is not removed, then you won't have a good um, outcome laying ahead. Another thing that leaders would be accountable for um, is the general context in which their team is situated. So let's say we have this team that is in a context where it's very tough to negotiate because they're working with multiple teams. Uh, and the team is not performing. Now, what I would see is the leader above would so the leader of the team structure would call the leader of the team responsible, and the leader of the team would not feel that they are responsible. They would, you know, um, put the responsibility down the chain of command. So I've seen this a lot of times. Like the person on top says, "No, I'm not responsible. They're responsible." The person above below says, "No, I'm not responsible. The team is responsible." So a lot of the times, what happens is that this creates a huge amount of pressure on the team members themselves, and the context, of course, becomes a hugely toxic one because team members feel pressure. The leader continuously also pressures the team, and the team backlashes at them. So they get into this constant fight. Now, there is half truth and half truth here, right? To some degree, the let's say the leader of the team is responsible for what's going on. The leader that's above the leader of the team, so they can be a uh, program manager, they can be a release train engineer, they can be a product manager, they can be a director of engineering, maybe they can be a line manager. So the leader above has to take ownership of everything that's happening under them. Everything. Like everything. If a person in a 300 people team makes a mistake, that's on the senior department leader. Okay, why do I say this and why does this seem a little bit drastic? I say this because whenever the department leader takes ownership of this, they can actually engage in meaningful conversations of what happened, how can we solve this, and what can we do to move on. Now, most of the times, if the top leader doesn't take ownership, what they see, what they inspire in their people is that they also should not take ownership. So we have the top leader not taking ownership, we have the guys that lead the team not taking ownership, and then we will have the people on the front lines not taking ownership. So this is kind of the way this works. Now, what is the reverse? The reverse is the top leader takes ownership. They say, look, this is personal to me. This is something that I really want to solve with you guys. I will not have the solution, but I definitely want to be part of the process and I definitely want to contribute. Right? Now, what this does is this gives people a sense of, okay, this is important. They are here for us. Let's start working with him or her. And whenever this top leader that takes ownership, sees a person in the lower rank not taking ownership, they have to work with them and they have to coach them, right? Look, I'm taking ownership because this is my department. You have to take ownership because this is your team. If you can't take ownership of your team, then you're not the right person for the job. Now that conversation, you know, can be had a little bit more softly. In the end, it's a conversation that has to be done, right? So a leader that's in a leadership position that can't take responsibility for their role is not a good leader. So I had a couple of examples on that, and this is a key uh, leitmotif that has been happening in teams. So I was once working with a team that had a product manager that just wouldn't take responsibility for the way they were acting within the team, and the Scrum Master also did the same thing. So they fought a lot, and when I got there, um, the situation was so tough that they would not communicate directly. They would actually just escalate their needs to somebody else, to their um, to their superiors, and then you'd have to communicate through the hierarchy in order to get the message across. So the situation was really dire. When I got into that team, I really had to do a lot of conflict management sessions. So I think we did about 4 or 5 conflict management sessions. Basically, I talked to both of them, both individually, both we got in the same place, and eventually we got to a place where they really took ownership of their role in the fight that they were having, and we eventually established a common goal and what we want to do to move forward, and what would be the rules in engagement, how should we treat each other, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. So these types of things can determine lack of motivation. Another thing that's really important is not taking ownership of the relationships that we have. So as a leader, your job is not to micromanage your team. So as Jocko Willing says, it's not your job to look down um, on your team to micromanage what they're doing every single step. It's your job to look above and beyond to kind of understand where the team is going, why are they going there, what are the next steps that we will have to do, what are the key relationships that I have to develop in order to make that happen, where is my team stuck, how do I manage to go about it. So taking ownership of the way you build the relationships as a leader within your organization is going to be a key aspect um, that you're going to have to look at. So relationship building, influencing. Now, when leaders get negative feedback on any of these fronts, they start becoming disenchanted. They start lacking motivation. And the more things that pile up, the more micro stressors, maybe the day-to-day operations is drowning them, maybe they are not really able to stay on top of um, their tasks, responsibilities, on top of their team. Maybe they're not able to kind of organize and be able to foresee what's going to happen. All of these things will chip away at the motivation that leaders have. And when you put on top of it long hours, declining health, and bad relationships at home, then things start to pile up. So I have seen leaders after their 30s. So we're talking about 35 to 55. I have seen leaders that have had multiple um, interventions, like hospital interventions, because they were precisely in those types of situations where they had a lot of conflict. The operations work was very tough for them, and they weren't able to really move the needle as much as they wanted. So their expectation was here, and they were delivering kind of here. So all of these things chip away at the motivation. Now, um, what do leaders have to do with this? Well, I did talk a lot about leaders, but if we look at let's say the organizational development, right? Leaders are actually the most developed people in the company. They get the most access to trainings. They get the best benefits, and they are kind of promoted to a leadership status because they themselves are really, really good. So the overall mood of the leaders of this compact group called leadership will directly influence the overall mood of the general population in the company. So if you're talking about disenchantment, lack of motivation, you are talking about uh, the mood of the leadership spreading towards the whole organization. Another thing that would really be important is the lack of metrics, and this can be either a local problem or a global problem. I've been in companies where this was more related to the specific team that I was working with, or it was related to the department that I was working with, and basically the department was not having like standards, metrics. They did not really know how to quantify, how to uh, create a clear understanding of we are here, these are the numbers, we have to go there, these are the new numbers, and these are the ways we want to go there, right? So this also creates lack of motivation because people don't like vagueness, they like clear cues of I'm doing this well, I'm not doing this well, right? So um, when we look at the second question, well, leaders are responsible. Leaders are responsible for their own motivation, and they are responsible for the motivation of their teams and the motivation of the people around them. So this is actually not my concept. Dostoevsky came with this concept, I think, 150 years ago, something like this. We are responsible for uh, our life and the life of everyone on the planet. So taking a lot of accountability for your own motivation is the way to go. Now, the reason why I also wanted to address this topic was because I also struggled a lot with the topic. So I think for about 3 years, I listened to motivational videos. And after about 3 years, you kind of hear all the motivation that there is. Of course, I don't expect um, to know everything in the motivation domain, but I did get to a point where, yeah, I've heard something similar um, some time ago. So what I realized was that motivation is not a mindset issue alone. So, as I said, I listened for 3 years, um, motivational uh, motivational videos. It was like half an hour a day. I tried to get into the right mindset, tried to get into the right way of thinking. And what I realized recently, basically 2 years ago, was that motivation has to do with growth. A lot of motivation is about growth. And a lot of the things that we do and the things that we try because we want to grow, we want to become better, and because we want to be appreciated. So this is, I would say, the way I would look at motivation. I think it was Autonomy, Purpose, and Mastery from Daniel Pink. I would be a little bit shaky on the autonomy part. So, for example, for a senior person, autonomy I think is really, really important. Um, for the company, best practices are important, and while for more junior roles, I think that guidance is more important than autonomy. But I would say mastery and also purpose, I would rank them as important. Although I think mastery would actually top purpose for a lot of people. So when we look at these factors for motivation, what I realized is that motivation is intrinsic, but it's not like a thought process that I had. It was more of a need that I had. So I was feeling a lot of stress about 2 years ago. It's more like 1 year and a half ago. So I was feeling a lot of stress, and I wanted to do something. I wanted to not think about things. So I started this plus one thing, because I had like a lot of ideas from my motivation background. I had a lot of ideas of what should I do, and what I noticed was that um, when I started to develop this habit of doing something plus one every day, this is where motivation started to get me, and this is where I started to engage. So, what you should do next, in my opinion, pick something where you want to grow, establish a metric, start on your comfort level, and every day increase by one. So do this for 3 6 months, and you'll start feeling a lot more motivated. I'll get more into this in the next podcast, because I have like a couple of things that I can show you. Okay, so thank you for being here. Do remember to lead every day with purpose, passion, and responsibility. See you in the next one.